How many of you have a favorite food? On the count of three, shout out your favorite food. 1, 2, 3. Now, did you know that when you were a baby, you had favorite foods too? Now, I have 2 children, and before they were born, when each of them was in my belly, they had favorite foods, and each of them wanted me to eat different things. My son, when he was in my belly, he wanted to eat smoothies. And my daughter, when she was in my belly, she wanted me to eat gummy bears. So, when my son was in my belly, I drank lots and lots of smoothies for him. And when my daughter was in my belly, I ate lots and lots of gummy bears for her. And I didn't just eat those foods. I craved them. I thought about those foods until I could have them again. Today's story starts with cravings. Cravings for love, for a family, and for a certain food. It's the story of Rapunzel. And for this telling of the story, I combined aspects of the German and Italian versions. The story is mostly the Grimm's tale, which is more family-friendly or tame compared with the Italian and the French versions. Now, some of these folk tales could get as horrifying as some of today's TV shows. Remember, they weren't just for children, but for everyone in the folk community. The name in this story, Parsley, along with a little parsley birthmark on the girl's chest, well, that comes from Basile's Italian version. In Italy, parsley is prezzemolina, and that is the root of the name of the tale in Italy, Petrosanella. But the Grimms changed the kind of leafy green herb that the mother craved from parsley to rampion, or evening primrose, which in German is Rapunzel. In the days of knights, castles, and peasants, they didn't have access to modern medicine and relied on more folk wisdom to help women take care of themselves and the babies in their bellies. It was believed that whatever a woman thought about while she was pregnant would influence and mark the unborn baby in her belly. For instance, I have a little triangle birthmark on my belly. Now, if I were born in medieval times, people would have said, "Oh, look at that. Her mother must have had an obsession with triangles when she was pregnant." And the same was true for a woman's food cravings. If a woman thought and thought about something or some food for long enough while pregnant, it was believed that the thought would imprint on the baby. And that's exactly what we see in this story. It's a strange and mystical part of the story. That detail borrowed from the Italian version by Basile, the girl marked with parsley on her chest. Well, I want to start with a question. Do any of you have a favorite food? What is your favorite food?
Chocolate.
Chocolate. What is your pizza? Now, one thing you may not know is you like those foods now, but when you were a teeny tiny baby inside someone's belly, do you know you probably like those same foods too? Once upon a time, there was a man and a woman, and the woman was going to have a baby, and that baby inside her belly was hungry. And that baby wanted one thing more than anything else. Now, at the count of 3, yell out your favorite food. 1, 2, 3.
Pizza.
Oh, you didn't yell out anything. At the count of 3, yell out your favorite thing. 1, 2, 3.
Pizza.
Very good. Well, the thing that baby inside that woman's belly wanted more than anything else was green things. Lettuce and kale and parsley. And so the woman, she would sing to her baby, my baby, what do you want, my dear? My baby, my baby. You want lettuce? Okay, it's right here. And she would get a whole plate full of lettuce and eat it all up. Everybody eat up your lettuce. This is one way to get your kids to eat their greens. We just talk about it in the story. She ate it all up, and she would look around for every kind of green thing because that baby in her belly wanted those good green things to eat. Well, one day, the woman, she was sitting in her room, and she looked out her window. And across the way, over a garden wall, there was a beautiful garden, and inside that garden was growing green, leafy parsley. Oh, and the woman, she sang to her baby, my baby, what do you want, my dear? My baby, my baby. You want parsley? It's right over there. And she couldn't get to it. She couldn't get to the parsley. Oh, I want the parsley. I cannot get to the parsley. Husband, you must get me the parsley. And the husband, he didn't know what to do because across that garden wall, that garden was owned by a sorceress. And he didn't want to be in trouble with the sorceress, but the woman, she kept craving that parsley. Oh, please, you must give me the parsley. You must. Well, after many days of this, the man finally decided he had to do it, and so he crept out. He climbed over that garden wall. He saw the parsley, and he grabbed some of it. Everybody grabbed the parsley. Grabbed some of it, and he snuck over. And he was about to get away, about to climb up that garden wall, when he heard a voice behind him saying, my man, what do you have right there? And he turned around, and there was the sorceress. And she had caught him stealing, and she said, now, I have caught you. What do you think I should do to you? And he was afraid. He said, I'm sorry. My wife, she wanted the parsley, and all I could do was to go and get. She's about to have a baby, and I'm so sorry. She's craving the parsley. Ah, well then I will give it to you, but you must give me the baby when the baby is born. Oh, no! But she would not let him go until he promised to give her the baby when the baby was born. Well, he was afraid for his own life. He didn't know what to do. Yeah. All right. And so she said, you take all the parsley that you want. And so he grabbed all the parsley. He brought it back to his wife. And what did the wife do? Eat it. Everybody eat your parsley. Well, she ate all of the parsley, and soon enough that, my baby, the baby was born. Oh, and she had a beautiful little baby girl. But as soon as that girl was born and weaned, who came?
The sorceress.
The sorceress. She came, and she took the baby, and she ran off into the woods with that baby. And for 12 years, that baby lived and grew to be 12 years of age. And when the girl was 12 years of age, the sorceress, she took out her hand. Everybody take out your hand. She swirled her hand around above the ground, and up out of the ground rose a tower. And the tower was high. It had no door. It had a window up at the top. And the sorceress, she flew with the 12-year-old girl up through that window and deposited the girl up in that tower. Because in Italy, the word is parsley. But in Germany, what the girl craved was a special kind of lettuce called Rapunzel. And up in that tower, the girl lived. And in this story, as we tell it, and as they tell it in Italy, the girl had the emblem of a little sprig of parsley right here on her chest. And so, the little girl, Parsley, when she was 12 years of age, she lived in that tower with the woman. Well, the girl's hair had grown and grown and grown to be 20 feet long. And the sorceress would go out during the day. And in the evening, she would call up to the girl in the tower. She would say, do we want parsley or Rapunzel?
Rapunzel.
Rapunzel. Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Throw down your hair! And so the girl, she would take that long hair. Everybody take that long hair. Take that long hair. She would hook it around a hook, and she would throw it. Everybody throw it down out of that tower. It would come tumbling down 20 feet. And the sorceress, she would grab hold of that hair. Everybody grab hold of the hair. And she would climb up. And every day she would climb down the hair. Every evening she would come back, and what would she call out? Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Throw down your hair! And what would the girl do? She would hook it around the hook and throw it down. And the sorcerer would climb back up again. Well, one day, The sorceress was out, and who came riding by that tower?
The king?
Her father.
Prince. A prince came riding by, and the girl, she had always hummed this certain tune to herself. She would sit by that one window in the tower, and she never knew where she knew the tune from, but she would just hum it and sing to herself out into the woods. La 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 la. She didn't know how she knew the song, but she would sing that tune. Well, he heard her singing. Oh, that is beautiful. And he fell in love with her voice. Well, he hid behind some bushes. He saw the sorceress come by. Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Throw down your hair! And she would hook that hair around the hook, but he'd hook it up, throw down the hair, and the sorceress, she would climb up the hair. Well, the prince, he saw. He waited that night. The next day, when the sorceress climbed down, he went over. What did he call out?
Rapunzel.
Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Throw down your hair! And what did she do? She hooked it, threw it down, and the prince himself came climbing up. Well, at first, when he came through the window, well, what would you do if some strange person came climbing in your window?
Hit him with a pan?
Hit him with a what?
A pan.
Yes! She screamed, ah! And she hit him with a pin. Ah! But once he recovered, he sat up, and they started talking. And you know, he was a lot more interesting to talk to than that sorceress was. And they talked. And before the sorceress came back that night, he climbed back down her hair, and for days he would come, Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Throw down your hair! And she would throw down her hair, he would climb up it, and they talked, and they laughed, and they fell in love. And they were married, in secret. And so for weeks and weeks and months, she would throw down her hair. Everybody throw down her hair. He would climb up whenever that sorceress wasn't around, and he would see his wife, until one day the sorceress was walking back into the woods, and she heard Rapunzel singing. But she heard Rapunzel singing not just the tune that she had heard her singing before, but she heard her singing, my baby, what do you want, my dear? She called out, Rapunzel, Rapunzel! Throw down your hair! And Rapunzel, she threw down that hair, hung it over the hook, and threw it down. Everybody throw it down. Whoosh! The sorceress, she climbed up, and as she climbed up, she got inside, and she looked over at Rapunzel. Rapunzel was starting to look different, and Rapunzel asked the sorceress, she said, Why is my belly growing so big? And the sorceress knew. She said, you have gotten married in secret, and now you are going to have a baby. Well, what she didn't know is that the girl was about to have 2 babies. And she took the girl, everybody take your shears, scissors, and she cut off the girl's hair, and she pushed the girl out, and the girl went wandering out into the woods alone. Well, about that time, the prince came riding by. He didn't know what had happened. Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Throw down your hair! And the hair came down. Whoosh. He climbed up. Everybody climb up. But who was up at the top?
The sorceress.
Ah! You are the one. I will show you. And she took him, and she pushed him out the window, only she pushed him very hard. Everybody push. And she pushed him all the way down into a patch of brambles with thick, thick thorns. And he got caught in those brambles, and the brambles and those thorns, they made him blind. And off he went into the woods, and he wandered, and she wandered for quite some time. And at the end of that time, Rapunzel had had her babies. And at that time, that blind prince, he was wandering around in the forest. He was forced to eat grass because he had nothing else to eat, and he was at the point of starving. But he heard a sound, and it was a sound he recognized. In his blindness, he heard, my babies, what do you want, my dear? It was a weak voice, and he followed the sound until he found Rapunzel. And Rapunzel was about to die, and her own 2 babies were about to die. They were starving in the woods. Oh, but they'd found each other. My prince, my prince. And she came over with her babies, their children, and she wept onto his face, those blind eyes. But as she wept, those tears fell into his blind eyes, and he was healed. He regained his sight. And with his sight returned to him, he knew the way home. And the prince, and now his princess, and their 2 children went home, where they were well fed and lived happily to the end of their days. When our heroine was marked by the parsley her mother had craved, it's the start of many ways that this poor girl is tossed around, ordered about, and marked by other people in the Grimm's versions of the story. In the Grimm's version, the girl is a passive figure, which means most of the action in the story is about things that happen around her, not things she causes. She's locked in a tower. She lets down her hair when others tell her to. She's thrown from the tower by the sorceress. Even the bit of magic that operates through her, the magic of love, what happens by chance. She doesn't place the tears into the prince's eyes. They just happen to fall there, out of her face. She's very passive. But in another version, the ending of the story is much more exciting because the heroine is much more active. In this version of the story, it's an ogress, or female ogre, who has imprisoned Parsley. And here's the ending. So, in the ending of this version of the story that comes to us from Italy, Parsley and the prince were running. Run with me? They were running, and they were running away from the ogress who was chasing after them. But as the ogress chased after them and Parsley was running, she remembered the gifts that she had been given. She reached into her pocket, better reach in, and she pulled out a gall nut, a special nut, and she threw it behind her. And that gall nut, when it hit the ground, it became a Corsican bulldog. And that bulldog looked at the ogress and thought that that ogress looked like something delicious to snack on. Well, the ogress was a little bit afraid, but the ogress reached into her pocket. Everybody reach in your pocket. She reached into her pocket and she pulled out a piece of bread, and she threw that bread at the bulldog. And the bulldog saw the bread and got distracted and started eating the bread, and on they ran, Parsley and the prince, with the ogress following behind. And Parsley, as she ran, she remembered, she had another gall nut. She reached in her pocket, reach in, grab it, grab that gall nut, and she threw it behind her. And when that gall nut hit the ground, it became a lion. And the lion started to go towards the ogress as if she might be a delicious snack for that lion to eat. But the ogress, she looked around, and she spied she didn't have any more bread, and she didn't think the lion would like that anyway, but she looked around and she saw, standing in a field, what? A donkey. And lions are afraid of donkeys, because what do donkeys do? They kick. So she went over. She was a magical ogress. She went over to that donkey, picked up that donkey. Everybody pick up your donkey. And she took the hide right off of that donkey. Whoosh, and she used that hide as a disguise. She threw it around her, and she pretended to be a what? A donkey. Oh, and she walked up to where that lion was. And the lion was scared, and the lion ran off, and the ogress kept running and kept chasing Parsley and the prince, who were running. And Parsley, she reached into her pocket for a third and final time, and she pulled out her third and final gift, another gall nut, and she threw it over her shoulder. Oh, and that gall nut, it became a wolf. And that wolf turned around, and you know what it saw? The strangest thing. It was the ogress, but what did the ogress still have on her? The skin of the
Donkey.
And this wolf was not afraid at all of that donkey. This wolf looked at that donkey and thought the donkey would be a delicious treat. And that wolf ate the donkey. And Parsley and her prince went on, safe and sound together. The end. The story ending for this story, Parsley or Rapunzel, has several motifs that we've heard before in other stories. Do you remember some of them? Remember when the girl had to escape from the evil Baba Yaga, and she began to throw objects that she had been given, the white cloth that became a river and the comb that springs into a forest, just like in this story, when our heroine throws a gall nut behind her and it becomes a bulldog. Now, earlier in the Baba Yaga story, she throws bread at the dog, and it lets her go, just like the ogress throws bread at the bulldog. In this version, Parsley is more like Molly Whoopie, or the girl in the Baba Yaga tale. She's a more active heroine. In many of the classic versions of traditional tales, and remember, what we call classic, and the classic version isn't always the best version. It's the one that speaks the values of the culture at the time, and the values that culture wants to voice. Now, for example, in some versions of Snow White, the prince kisses the princess to awaken her. Or, as in the traditional version that we heard, the prince's servants move the girl's lifeless body about until the apple dislodges from her throat. Now, in both versions, she's lifeless, passive, until someone rescues her. In the oral traditional version of Sleeping Beauty, the girl is put under a sleep for 100 years, and she's promised the blessing of having a prince waiting for her there when she wakes up. In other versions of the story, Sleeping Beauty has to wait until the prince rescues her and kisses her. Only then will she awaken. Now, in both versions, she's a pawn, but in the first version, she'll wake up at the end of 100 years, prince or kiss or not. But in the second version, she's at the total mercy of her rescuer. The girl can't help herself at all. But the many traditional stories you've heard thus far have shown that the traditional canon of folk and fairy tales is chock full of heroines who are very active. Basile's Parsley Girl, who sicks a hungry lion on an evil ogress and defeats her, or Molly Whoopie, who braves an ogre's house again and again to help her sisters and herself. Or Vasilisa, the Russian Cinderella, who dares to go to Baba Yaga's hut and survives and gets the prince as her prize in the end. Now, there are so many strong women folk heroes in traditional folk tales and fairy tales. Sometimes you just have to get beyond the classic popular version to find the heroine you want to follow. Which leads us to our third point about this story. The heroine is one of a triad of archetypal women figures in this story. In the Arthurian legends, stories from the time of King Arthur, there were 3 male archetypal roles of warrior, father, and sage. In the story of Rapunzel, as with the story of Snow White, we see a triad of women figures represented by different characters: the maiden, the mother, and the crone. Now, each of these has both a bright side, a positive manifestation of the role, and a shadow side, a negative manifestation of the role. For example, Parsley is the maiden character. She's a young girl, unmarried, innocent, and thrown into adventure. Have you ever felt like you were thrown into an adventure, young and perhaps a bit overwhelmed? And the maiden character also has a shadow side. She could be a fatal siren, enticing, alluring, drawing the prince into the tower and into danger with her siren's song. Another woman in the story is Rapunzel's mother. The mother archetype is often presented as nurturing, caring, and life-giving, but there's a shadow side to this figure as well. The terrible mother. The mother who abandons her daughter to the arms of a terrible ogress. And what about that ogress? In some stories, she's a sorceress or a witch. In other stories, she's an older woman who keeps Rapunzel trapped away from other men. Now, in these stories, she is the shadow side or negative side of the older woman figure, the witch. The positive side of this figure is the crone. She's older, wise, and sometimes even magical, and someone with the power to bless or to curse you. What makes the story interesting is that each of these characters behaves both as the positive and negative aspects of the archetype. Parsley, or Rapunzel, is both innocent and a siren. The mother is both a nurturer and someone who abandons. The sorceress is both a wise woman who keeps her foster child locked away and safe from harm, and an evil witch who throws her out into the forest to die. Now, it's no surprise that Rapunzel isn't put into the tower until she reaches 12 years of age. That's the age when boys and girls begin to mature into men and women. And in a way, the witch wants to keep Rapunzel a little girl. Now, why do you suppose the witch doesn't want her to mature into a young woman? In the story of Rapunzel, and many others, it's the point of maturity at which the maiden will transition from one archetypal role to another. And indeed, she has transitioned from being an unmarried maiden, still dependent upon the witch, to a mature, married mother of twin children. When Rapunzel is cast out of the castle, she is cast away from her maidenhood. And perhaps growing up has felt like that for you at times. You feel tossed out of the nest and out of this place that you've known, and you're out there wandering out in the forest. We see the mother, maiden, crone triad in a number of stories from folklore. Now, the thing about types is that no one in real life is just one of these types. In fact, as we grow older, we realize that we've got a little of each of these types in all of us. Men and women, boys and girls, we've all got parts of these types within all of us. The stories reduce and distill experiences into characters, simple representations. It's been said that folk tales are like the subconscious dreams of a culture. In them wells up all the desires and anxieties and experiences of cultural life. In these stories, all the characters represent us, the different aspects of ourselves. We can see ourselves in parts of each of the characters. Sometimes I can be a real witch, especially if I'm hungry. Sometimes we're as innocent and naive and lost as Rapunzel when she was running out into the forest. Sometimes we feel too old for the situation and happy to help those who are coming up behind us, like the wise old person of a sage or a crone. And it's important to note that both boys and girls may identify with the male warrior character in the story. I love Jack tales, and I identify with the Jack character, even though I also identify myself as a girl. Now, there's a lot of masculine hero in me. Boys may identify with some of the nurturer aspects of the mother figure. Every one of us has masculine and feminine aspects of ourselves. And stories give us a way to see and experience and feel these aspects of ourselves as we journey along with all the characters. And because we tell stories, if we don't agree with or identify with the ways that the archetypes are gendered, well, we can always retell the stories from a different point of view or a different context. In our next lecture, we'll jump to the masculine triads found in folkloric imagery: warrior, father, sage. And we'll hear about some pretty amazing legendary heroes, from King Arthur to Winnie the Pooh.